Welcome back. I'm glad you're still here with us on Morning at NTV. If you are just joining us, welcome on board. We're glad when we have all hands on deck, and it's the Kickstarter discussion, protecting children with disability. Now, when we talk about the protection of children as the greater conversation, that alone is pertinent. But within that cluster lies a set of children who are challenged. Imagine, for example, a child who is blind, dumb, deaf, a child that has multiple disabilities with him or her, already in an environment or a setting that has another child who might not be as challenged as this one, grappling with a whole other set of challenges. It makes their situation particularly challenging, and that is the conversation today in light of efforts that are geared towards ensuring that help and resources are pooled together to be able to ensure that their well-being is attended to and improved. All this is in line with the celebrations of the International Day for Persons with Disability that is coming up on the 3rd of December. Joining me in the studio this morning for this conversation is Patrick Menya, a Principal Gerontologist in the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. I'm also joined by Honourable George Didi Bhoka, the Member of Parliament for Obong constituency. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Let me begin with the official from the Ministry of Gender and Government, for that matter, to bring us up to speed with the plight of children with disability, but also take us through the Child Disability Grant and how this promises to improve or make better all interventions that have been ongoing in as far as improving the welfare of these particular sets of people is concerned.
Thank you so much, moderator, and our viewer. Thank you for tuning in this morning, and I'm delighted to be talking about a group or a clan of the vulnerable persons. And as we are talking about that, this clan of the vulnerable persons, specifically now today, we are talking about children with disabilities as we move into the commemoration of the International Day for Persons with Disabilities, which is set for 3rd of December. Where we're going to be in Ikumi, and we're expecting His Excellency the President to preside over the function. Moderator, you've highlighted something pertinent in this country, which touches both the social and the economic aspect of the children with disabilities. For sure, our children with disabilities, we can say economically, socially, and culturally, they are marginalized. For instance, a number of people imagine, especially the parents. I will highlight, with due respect to my colleague, the man, and you, men fear. The moment they bear a child with disability, then they trace back that in my lineage, we've never had a child with, or we've never had an history of a child with disability. And in that case, they run away from responsibility. And this child, you've given a good scenario, a child with multiple disabilities, blind, deaf, and possibly has a physical disability.
That is right.
And the community, there's a way community isolates these people, saying it is a taboo in the community. For us, we can't bear such a child. And they leave the vulnerable mothers to look after these children.
Yeah.
And if you left a single parent to look after a child, taking care of a child with disability has a lot of cost implications. For instance, I can have a child with the spina bifida. This person, they cannot move, cannot walk all through.
That is right.
So you are, but is supposed to have medical attention on a weekly basis. This person is supposed to eat. And at the same time, this person cannot be left alone in the home.
That is right.
Either you are supposed to get a maid. So look at the cost of taking care of a child, taking this child on medication on a weekly basis. That is a fund which is required. It requires money. It requires money, yeah. You must have a maid, because for you must work. You must go to the market.
Not only just a maid, but a dedicated carer.
Yes. So all that requires a lot of funding. So when we are talking about a child with disability, caring for a child with disability, it is not as usual as any other person bearing a child, a normal child.
That's right.
It requires a lot. So in line with that, if you talk about discrimination, the social aspect, the health, the economic, it is time now to look at the social protection. Working with our colleagues from Parliament and my colleagues in the government, we need to come up with strategies of how we can help these children and parents caring for children with disabilities.
All right.
And amongst those interventions is the proposed children disability grant, which is in the pipeline. And as we continue in our discussions, you will hear.
I was just about to say you'll be giving us a bit of detail on that, but allow me engage Honorable Bhoka, who is a Member of Parliament for Obong constituency. You also sit on the Uganda Parliamentary Forum for Social Protection, and hearing Mr. Menya break down the need for improving social protection mechanisms available for the vulnerable children is something that I cannot even ever emphasize. Within the existing framework, what is working and what needs to be tweaked in order to ensure that some of the challenges he has just highlighted are attended to, especially by those who are the carers of these very vulnerable individuals?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, viewers and listeners. Dr. Bhoka Didi George is my name, Member of Parliament Obong constituency, here at the studio to share perspectives on what we can do as a country to create an enabling environment, have resources, and ensure progressive realization of the rights of children with disability to critical services. Dear viewers, it's important to note that we have close to 2 million children with disability in Uganda. From a rights perspective, the Universal Declaration on Rights, Article 25, compels us for progressive realization of the rights of these children with disability to services. The Convention on Social and Economic Rights, Article 11, provides a international legal framework for us to take action. And we're happy that as government, within the context of the Convention on the Rights of Children, Article 35 of our Constitution, we have a provision to say to it that as government and partners, we have to provide services for children, and specifically in Article 35, persons with disability. We do appreciate that the government of Uganda has progressed in creating an enabling and legal environment, first and foremost, by having a constitutional provision in the Bill of Rights to ensure progressive realization of the rights of children and the rights of persons with disability. 2, we have put in place policies, enabling policy framework for persons with disability in Uganda. 3, we've been able to, every year, see to it that within the ministries responsible for provision of critical services, for children in general and children with disability in particular. These services are provided. The context within which these services are provided underpins, one, the causation of disability. Disability is caused by various factors which are multisectoral in nature. And therefore, the response to the provision of services for children with a disability should be multisectoral, bringing on board all ministries, departments, agencies, local government and partners, multi-level interventions at national level, regional level, as well as local government and community level, including putting households and families at the center of the provision of services for children with disability. Okay. What do children with disability need from us as duty bearers? One, they need health services, disability-friendly health care. Two, they need education, disability-friendly education service, inclusive education. Three, they need livelihoods. And four, they need social protection and safety nets at home, in the community, and in all spaces where children live, interact, and play. Thank you.
All right. That, of course, is very elaborate and speaks to what I'm sure does form the crust of the Child Disability Fund. Take us through that, Mr. Menya.
Thank you, and I'm grateful to his, as a legislator. Whatever we are talking about today, the plight of children with disabilities, it requires a specific fund. As the prevailing grant, but by the way, I just need to inform you that government has put in place a number of interventions to persons with disabilities. For instance, we have the National Special Grant for Persons with Disabilities, where people with disabilities are being supported with 5 million shillings on a group basis. However, you'll find that this grant, however much we are catering for parents of children with disabilities, it is not enough. We need a direct support income. And the direct support income, which is not on group basis, we want an intervention where this child or parent with a child with disability is supported directly.
Be very specific when you talk about direct intervention to ensure that this kind of support is actually effective, because in all its forms it goes through the parent or the duty bearer. So what is the specificity of intervention?
The intervention we are talking about is the parent or a homestead with a child with disability is supported to make sure that this child has has all the aspects of a human being. For instance, if we say on a monthly basis that this home receive either 50,000 on a monthly basis, to make sure that this child or the home is supported. So our intervention on the disability grant, the child with disability grant, is to support a household with a child with disability. You know, like Honorable has pointed out, that we have close to 2 million children with disabilities, and the children between the age of 2 to 4, they are in around 300,000. I think Honorable will agree with me. And then from 5 to 17, it is close to 1.3. So you'll find that the grant that we have as the special grant for persons with disabilities cannot cater for this class of people. So that's why we are coming up with the grant, the disability grant, the children disability grant, which is going to support these children directly, either directly, those who are above the age of 15, then these ones here below the age of 2 to 4, 5 to possibly 10, we pass the grant through their caretakers. Those are the parents, because these are the people who are providing for these children.
All right.
Yeah.
A question for you, which you should be able to answer straight after the Honourable has taken us through the effective monitoring and evaluation of impact of the Child Disability Grant, is, I'm just reading a story here in the Daily Monitor where the Minister has tasked UBOS on the results of the census indicating the number of persons with disabilities and children do fall here. This is down to the well-being of a child in a home state is beyond provision of this stipend.
Yeah.
Because, for example, if 50,000 shillings come through on a monthly basis for a child in a family that has 4, how do you determine that this 50,000 actually goes to the welfare of that vulnerable child? Because what happens and what is likely to happen is that it will cater for general welfare without necessarily going to the specific needs of that vulnerable person. Maybe think about that, and then we shall be able to share immediately after. Honourable, the evaluation and the impact of this Child Disability Fund. We have cases where money has been disbursed to the effect that I've just alluded to, and then there is no follow-up mechanism that allows for effective use of this money. I don't know whether the forum has a specific framework that is going to roll out in order to ensure that this is sustainable in the long term, away from the multiple interventions that we've seen fall into the trap of corruption and misuse of funds.
Yeah, thank you. From a parliamentary perspective, the grant is one thing that we'd like to see in place, but this grant needs to be anchored in our framework to see to it that it's a sustainable intervention for progressive realization of the rights of children. First and foremost, as members of parliament, and especially the forum on social protection, this grant must be anchored within an enabling legal, regulatory, and policy framework. So it's our duty to look into the existing legal instruments, and where we note there is a lacuna within the enabling law, we need to review, we need to update, we need to reformulate legal, regulatory, and policy frameworks that will ensure sufficient and necessary resources for the progressive realization of the rights of children to the basic services that I alluded to later on. Secondly, Parliament does not put the resources itself. The resources have to be initiated through the ongoing national planning and budget framework instruments. First and foremost, the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development and other ministries that are responsible need to ensure this goes to the ministerial policy statements, the national budget framework papers, the Ministry of Finance to ensure there is an indicative planning figure allocated, and this is put in the appropriations bill for us as Parliament to be able to review, assess whether or not it's sufficient, and approve before these resources are made available to the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, as well as other ministries that provide disability-friendly services for children with disability. I need to note that at the moment, this grant is not in place, and we are advocating for putting in place this grant. The grant that we have in place is a special grant for persons with disability in general. Once the resources are put in place from government and partners, that certainly takes us to the question that you've asked about. How do we ensure these resources are efficiently, economically utilized to realize value for money for the beneficiaries? We have various mechanisms in place within Parliament that we do from the time of planning to the time of execution, to the time of evaluation, that ensures the resources are put to good use. We have oversight committees of Parliament, and we have also sectoral committees. We, as the Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, do field visits, do visit facilities that provide services, and very recently we had an opportunity to even go up to the community to interact with beneficiaries to find out whether or not these resources are reaching them, they're being utilized well.
How does that scorecard read?
Well, it's ambivalent. In some areas, there is some impact. In other areas, there is room for improvement. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
The question about a specificity of intervention and whether there is a monitoring framework that allows that money actually caters for the vulnerable person that it is intended for.
Thank you. Like Honorable has put it, this is a program that we are proposing to Parliament. The good thing he has, you know, our duty is to send it to him, and then we see how we can appropriate
aspects of it.
But within our proposal of how we are going to monitor this, to make sure that children with disabilities are the real beneficiaries, we are not working alone as Minister of Gender. We work together with the district local structures, right from the parish chief, the CDO, coming we at the district level. Even we have a senior community development officer, we have probation officers, we have the DCDO, that is the community service department, which we're going to work with to make sure that the child with disability is the major beneficiary. And we are working with the civil society organizations. You know, in the monitoring, for it to be effective, you can't monitor yourself.
That's right.
You need to work with other stakeholders. And among the stakeholders, we are looking at organizations of persons with disabilities. We are looking at, for instance, we are working with UNICEF to make sure that all the mechanisms of making sure that the children with disabilities are the real beneficiaries. You talked about a homestead where one has more than 2 children. So if we only give a homestead, so that means this fund will not benefit the home, but it will be a general. No, we are looking at a child of a disability as an individual. So if in case you have 2 or 3 children with disabilities, then this benefit will go directly to the child, that specific child with a disability. Otherwise, we shall not be talking about equality in the area of economic distribution.
Okay.
I wanted to
very quickly.
Just of recent, I was in Igang and I found a mother with the 2 children, one with a mentor, and another one with a spina bifida. And the mentor requires specific intervention. Then the one for spina bifida and it was spina bifida.
That's a huge challenge. Huge challenge.
If you say that this parent requires only a single intervention, then you'll be doing a disservice to this person. All
right, gentlemen, many thanks for the submission and perspective. Patrick Menya, Principal Gerontologist in the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, and many thanks to you too. Honourable George Didi Bhoka, MP for Obong constituency. The celebrations for International Day for Persons with Disabilities is on the 3rd of December, and that will be in Kumi, where the Child Disability Fund is expected to be launched, if I am right.
You're right.
We shall go for a break. Morning at NTV does continue. The conversations will tackle management of retirement benefit schemes. So, if you want your money, please ensure that you stay with us.